Also, going back to original thing, mission, vision, values are a tool that when you use them enough and you preach them enough, then everybody in the organization will be able to make decisions the same way you would make the decisions. And this is like something that's very crucial when the organization grows fast and grows big.
Growing your business is tough, but don't worry, we've got you covered. We interview industry experts on how they've solved their most challenging business problems in SaaS or e-commerce. No fluff, just step-by-step playbooks to help you dominate your market and crush the competition. This is the How We Solve podcast. Here's your host.
Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of How We Solve. I'm Nikki Ivy with Sweetfish Media, and I'm going to be interviewing today David Hensel, and this is going to be his show. He's going to be in the driver's seat moving forward, but today we're going to get into how he and his organization solve for a couple of different things. First, though, before we get into that, David, go ahead and give us a quick intro on yourself and what you guys have been up to these days.
Sure. As you already mentioned, my name is David Hensel. I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time. I've been doing this in the e-com and SaaS space for over 20 years. I had a few exits under my belt. The biggest one was MaxCDN, which we sold 3 years ago. And now I have a small portfolio of businesses that I run, but just from afar. I mainly do organizational development and leadership development. The businesses are TaskDrive. We do lead research, then Shortlist.io. We do backlink generations like an inbound marketing agency. Then LTV Plus, where we provide dedicated customer experience agents. That's the shirt, by the way, CX nerds, for those of you who are watching the podcast on video. Then 50SaaS.com, which is a software development house. We have a framework on how to build SaaS businesses very fast, and we keep on rolling out new SaaS businesses there. So yeah, that's me.
That's David. So tell us, what problem are we solving today?
Today, we're solving a problem on how to come up with your mission and vision statement for the business, and also with the core values. This was something I always thought is not needed. You only needed to put it into the presentation when you raise money, and then you bury it somewhere on the website and you never look at it again. But it's actually a really crucial management tool and your North Star of your organization that helps you to make the right decisions and not have the shiny object syndrome and, flow around like a leaf in the wind.
Got it.
Basically, It helps you to not waste time.
Nobody wants that. So I'm excited to hear how you solve for that. Real quick, though, give us the pitch. So what are you guys all about here?
Well, LTV Plus, actually the podcast here, How We Solve It, we're going to always interview smart individuals who have solved hard business problems. So the audience doesn't have to fall in the same pitfalls that these people fell in, and you kind of get to where they want to go faster with less headache.
What I love about this show is it differs from a lot of them that are out there, is we really are sort of bringing a case study off the page and making it a lot less boring, right? Because we're gonna look at where the organization began before the problem was solved, really dig into how the problem was solved, and then talk about what it looks like today. So let's start there. What's the state of the business before you solve for the problem of mission statement and things like that in terms of employee size, department breakdown, revenue, things like that?
So with MaxCDN, we were, I think, around 50 people when this problem occurred. Initially, we had a clear mission and vision. We want to make CDN as accessible as possible and as easy to use as possible, because before we came up with the CDN was a enterprise play. So you had to, do a 1 year or 2 year contract with Akamai, and you had to pay a minimum of $500 a month. And this was something that did not really fly for most startups. So we want to make it as accessible and as easy to use as possible, and also make it frictionless. So you don't have to play the enterprise sales game with having a call and blah, and then getting a quote and back and forth. And so we just made it go to the website, type in your credit card. Within 5 minutes, you have your app or your website running on the CDN. And this worked really, really great. And we messed up by not writing it down, the mission and the vision, and not communicating it to all the new hires that we had. And we grew fairly fast. And so we ended up running into 10 different directions. For example, our head of engineering, who came from Splunk, who who is really awesome and talented dude, he wanted to build this crazy data analytics engine on top of MaxCDN, which was super cool, but only cool for a small percentage of our customers. And the rest was like, okay, what do we do with this, right? So our new head of sales ran after big enterprise accounts, kind of punching a little bit above our weight class, which was also not really the core of what we're doing. And so, yeah, we realized that this was the reason why we were stuck and nothing was moving anymore. And we sat down and figured out our mission, vision, values. Yeah, and once we had this and used this as a management tool and as our North Star for decision making, we took off again.
Got it. So real quick, before we move into some of the more granular pieces of how we solved this, if it's applicable, talk about where you guys were in terms of tech stack, and if you used any outside help like consultants or agencies on your way to figuring this out.
No, we did this all internally. And in terms of this tech stack, I guess you're referring to our script or reading from our script in terms of the questions. This is something that is rather for the other segments that we have. We have multiple hosts on the show aside from me, and I'm covering organization development and leadership development and personal development and culture and things like this. And this is more relevant for the marketing shows related to marketing or to sales.
Yeah. But I do think it's a cool question. It's not one that I ask a lot of folks on my show on B2B Growth, but I think it'd be interesting to sort of figure out how that plays into how folks are solving problems. So I want to just make sure I got it out there. Mm-hmm. You kind of already have given us some of the backstory of, what the state of affairs was when you decided you had to solve this problem. And I guess now we need to get into sort of the bullet points of exactly what the details are and how you solve this thing in a step-by-step, if you could.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the first thing that we figured out was our core values. And core values are a really cool tool to know what kind of behavior do we want to promote in our organization and what kind of behavior do we want to nix, kind of get rid of. And what kind of people do we want to hire that really fit to our culture. And also going back to original thing, mission, vision, values are a tool that when you use them enough and you preach them enough, then everybody in the organization will be able to make decisions the same way you would make the decisions. And this is like something that's very crucial when the organization grows fast and grows big, that everybody kind of pulls into the same direction. So how we came up with the core values at MaxCDN, we assembled a committee of six representatives of the company from different departments, and I was present as one of the co-founders. I think it's really crucial to have one of the co-founders in these meetings. And we blocked out a weekly recurring meeting time slot of 90 minutes in our calendars. It was, I think, every Wednesday morning. And the idea was we're going to do this until we have it done, because like sometimes it's not a mission critical thing. It's really important, but not urgent. So like these things get overwritten very easily. So we said, okay, we block this time slot until we have it done, until we, and after a few sessions, we were like, okay, let's move faster because we have other shit to do as well. So we also brought in a copywriter. I highly recommend that you bring a copywriter into this group of people because you have to do a lot of wordsmithing, and having somebody who's good at this is going to make your life much easier. Then we ask ourselves the following questions. As I mentioned before, which behavior do we want to encourage in the business? Which behavior drives us nuts? And then we also picked a few employees that really were like role model employees, like kind of like really encapsulate the culture that we loved at MaxCDN. And then we wrote down the words that describe these people. And first we had a collection of words, like a word cloud. And then this turned to a statement. And then we also added a tagline to it. So one example is own it. We build trust to total accountability. So the idea was that you have a short version of the vision statement of the core value. So it's easy to remember. We had 6 core values, and you can't remember these long sentences, and it's easier if you just like have these short word things.
Yeah.
Then we came up with them, and then we did a survey, actually 2 surveys with the entire employees, asking them for what they think. They should vote them up, kind of rate them, and add their own 2 cents, because we want to make it very inclusive. So it's actually really encapsulates who we are as an organization that's already existing, and not just something that's coming from top down, like, hey, this is how you have to be now. So we want everybody to kind of really have buy-in into this. And I'll include some slides and some other resources in the show notes. One is the presentation that we gave once we announced the finished core values to the entire team, so you can see like kind of how all of our core values looked, and the neat little icons that we came up with. And we kind of had these icons all over the office and in posters, and kind of the icons painted on the wall, and it worked really well to drive this home and actually use it in the day-to-day. I want to quickly get into how we came up with our vision and mission, and then the third part of it, how we made sure that it actually sticks and that we use it in the business.
Sure.
So coming up with the vision and mission, it's, again, you should assemble your committee of people who are going to work on this. Co-founders present is always best, or leadership team. And again, get a copywriter, always helpful. Then ideally meet outside of the office, so you're kind of disconnected, kind of retreat style, and lock yourself into a conference room where nobody bothers you, and grind through this for prep work. It helped us to watch the Simon Sinek Start With Why TED Talk to get into the mindset of like kind of really thinking about like, why did we start this company? We ask ourselves like, what's our personal motivation, and kind of what sucked in the industry that we want to change, and why do our customers love us, and where do we make the bulk of our money, and kind of what are the really good customers and that actually grow with us and not churn, and kind of build something around these guys to make it really stick. What's also really helpful that I can recommend you is writing a cover story. Like imagine that in 10 years from now, a big international newspaper magazine writes an article about you, or TechCrunch or whatever is in your field. And they basically tell the story on like what you have built in these 10 years, or how the state of your business is at this point. And this kind of gives you amazing material to kind of work with to craft your vision statement.
I love the idea of sort of sequestering yourselves and giving this the attention and intention that it's due. And the cover story idea is just a really cool, like, for lack of a better term, right? Really, really cool way to get yourself really aspirational about, because when we're talking about like this mission statement, it's got to be, and your values, it does have to be, yes, concrete things that you want to be about. But at the same time, it needs to be something that is inspirational in order for it to sort of permeate the culture of the organization. So I think,
especially also where you want to go, and that you can really use it as a filter. I saw Jack Ma speak somewhere, and he said that every day smart individuals from his organization come to him and say like, hey, we could add this feature or do blah, and this would make us X dollars. And then he says like, okay, cool idea. Let me run this through my filter. And his filter is his vision statement, which is make doing business easy anywhere. And he says like, okay, if this passes this test, if this really helps with this, then he considers it. And if not, he just nixes it. Or a friend of mine started Ring.com, and I talked to his lead guy who was leading the developers. And he said one of his developers came to him and said like, hey, I have this amazing idea. We have these floodlights that are on the side of the house, and when somebody walks by, then the lights go on. You can talk to this person like, hey, what are you doing on my property? Please leave. Mm-hmm. And he said, since these things have lights and a microphone, we could program a mode that these things flash to the music. And you thought that's the best idea ever. And if you tell your employee like, hey, that's a stupid idea, go away, then he's crushed and he will not bring up other ideas that may be good. And he's also not productive because he's, emotionally drained from this. But he just tied it back to their vision, which is making neighborhoods safer. And then it's like, he asked me like, hey, what does this have to do with making neighborhoods safer? And then people were like, oh yeah, you're right. It's
cool. My God, I love it. I'm applying this to my everyday life, and I'm using it on my kids, and they're going to hate it. They're going to hate it so bad. That's going to be my filter every time. I mean, you know what? And it's got me thinking about, what our mission statement is here with some of the initiatives we have at Sweetfish Media. And it does make it so much simpler to get motivated about the work I'm doing every day when I view it through that lens or that filter. So that's really, really good little hot piece of how to solve for that I kind of thing I was just hoping to come away with.
Actually, you mentioning family. I came up with a system on how to applying business principles to family life, and one of the things is like to come up with your family core values and your personal mission statement, and and this is something that works really well for me personally in terms of making big decisions. Kind of, what do I want to work on? What kind of business do I want to get into, etc.? What kind of car do I want to buy? All these bigger decisions, I have to run through this decision matrix of my family core values and my personal mission statement to figure out, am I really doing what I want to do? Do I really work on the things that I want to work on? And a good way of figuring out your personal mission is either doing the funeral exercise, so you imagine your own death and you're there in the casket or in the urn, and people that are important in your life come up and give a eulogy. And so what do you want these people to say? What would make you the most proud if they say this, right? And this is kind of an easy way to tie back to what do you really want to do with your life, right? What would make you most proud?
You give me something like this every time we talk, and I love it. And it's so funny that you mentioned that. So I have these in terms of things that I want people to be able to say about me and have those statements be true. I never thought of them as far as things I'd want people to say in the event of my death. The stakes are a bit higher there. Mine was just more of like anybody who am I interacting with, whether it's my kids or my coworkers. What are things I want folks to be able to say about me that are true? And I wrote down these affirmations, and they're things like, Nikki follows through. Nikki Ivy can be counted on. Nikki Ivy is a trailblazer and things like that. Simple stuff, and some of it gets all up into very aspirational. None of it is tied to any material thing or any sort of career goal or anything like that. It's just all what I want, the impact I want to have based on, how I apply my time and things like that. And one of the coolest things, and this is breaking news, I haven't actually told anybody this yet. So I sent that sheet of basically my personal mission statement over to Logan Lyles and to our COO, Bill Reed. And they had this poster made for me with, it's so like, cool. Yeah, it's like a little word cloud poster with my name in the middle in big letters and all the little aspirations that I had written down, all the affirmations that I had written down around it. And so like, it just really does drive home this point that these things really are important. It's functional as a filter, and then it ignites you as just a guiding set of principles. So it really is important to think about and talk about and be intentional about how you solve for coming up with your mission statement. So I'm really glad that you laid it out for us and talked a little bit about where you were on the other side of this thing, what it looked like to get it done, and now where you are on the right side of a mission statement and values. So I don't know if you've given it to us yet, but it's just so that I don't miss it before the end of this episode. What did you guys come up with? What is the mission statement that you came up with on the other side of this whole process?
So for MaxCDN was making CDN as accessible as possible and as easy to use as possible, kind of going back to the original one. If the funeral exercise is too morbid for you, you can also write your 100th birthday speech that somebody writes about you or a newspaper writes about you. Kind of what you did. But it's, if you don't like the idea of dealing with death that much.
And really, who doesn't? But I like the way you laid that out for us. I think these are good exercises, and I love that they're applicable to individuals and at the business level. And then we got a little peek into how you solved it. I'm looking forward to hearing you guys talk to other people about how they solve for a bunch of other business problems and how those solutions people come up with for business problems can spill into how they solve personal problems and the other way around. I think is a really exciting thing to look forward to on this show. Anything you want to leave folks with on this first episode of How We Solve before we close it out, David?
Let me think. Actually, one thing I still want to talk about is like how you make it stick. How you make sure that you hire the right people and that you really drive the mission and vision home, like kind of using it like a parrot. So what we currently do, we didn't do that at MaxCDN, but currently at TaskDrive and LTV+, we have a mission vision values call once a month with all the new hires. So where I walk through mission vision and values and tell some core value stories on employees that really have displayed our core values by doing XYZ. Mm-hmm. So people can kind of relate through stories on what this is. And we also ask people to sign the core values. It's at the end of our contract that they sign with us. They have to initial next to each core value and then sign below it saying like, okay, I commit to following these core values. And I know it can be a reason for termination if I'm not doing that. And this has been working really, really well for us. We also do a town hall call where once a month, we get together with everybody from the organization. And then again, we give people shout outs that displayed the core values or did a great job and living up to them. And we have a channel, the Cheers for Peers channel, where everybody can give anybody else a shout out on like representing the core values. And Lance Crosby, the founder of StackPath, founder and CEO of StackPath, he bought MaxCDN, and he told me that the CEO has only 3 things that he has to do. Number 1 is to make sure there's enough money in the business, kind of a fundraising, or make sure enough money is coming in. The second thing is hiring smart individuals in the key positions and leaving them alone. And the third one is to repeat the mission and the vision like a parrot to the outside world and to the inside world. So kind of to your team and to kind of everybody out there, customers, press, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was like a big aha moment. And yeah, I guess that's the third thing.
I love it. I love it because listen, right? There's no reason that you want to go through all this process that we just talked about, right? To solve for not having a mission, vision, and values, and then not have a system in place to make sure that it sticks. So I'd argue that that's probably the most important, or at least as important as coming up with the mission, vision, and values themselves. So thank you so much for laying this out, talking to other folks in the space and getting out of them how they solved the various issues that they're coming up against and learning something, obviously, at the end of the day. So thanks so much, David.
Thank you.
Is your sales team spending too much time researching leads and accounts? We take over all the labor-intensive sales development tasks so your team can focus on building relationships and closing more deals. We don't just build lists. We take a strategic, research-based approach to find your team qualified leads every day. Ready to start? Schedule your free consultation at taskdrive.com. That's taskdrive.com.
Thanks for listening to the How We Solve podcast. Dominate your market and crush the competition with our step-by-step playbooks. Subscribe right now in your favorite podcast player or visit howwesolve.com.